We are going to uh, continue in our Lessons in Light series. If you've been joining us, this has been the course's answer to the Lenten season. We're taking that time of Lent, which is traditionally those 40 days that start with Ash Wednesday and lead up to Easter, in looking at them in a new way. In the traditional Christian calendar, we're paying sacrifice for Jesus' sacrifice. That's the idea of Lent, that we need to atone in some way for this great sacrifice that Jesus gave us. In A Course in Miracles, he wants us to sacrifice the idea of sacrifice. He wants us to release those fearful thoughts, those judgmental thoughts, those guilty thoughts that are not allowing us to know the truth about ourselves, nor the truth about our brothers, and certainly not the awareness of God. So it's time for us to erase those thoughts, to begin to allow those to be lifted from our minds. And so for these 40 days, we have 7 different lessons, 7 weeks worth of lessons. And we're doing this together to really begin to shift our perception. And the first week of our Lessons in Light was Into His Presence Would I Enter Now. What a beautiful workbook lesson. What a beautiful thought is at any moment we can enter into the presence of God. God's loving presence is ever available to us. And that when we experience those moments, and sometimes it's just for a moment. If you've ever done a meditation and you go, oh, I feel that sense of peace, and then, oh God, the dishes still need to be done, the laundry still needs to be done, the job still needs to be done, you know, I have to still change the tire. There's all these things that still need to be done. And the Course says that's just natural. While we abide where we are not at home, we still have these things that do need to be done. There's things in the world that have to be done, and they need to be done whether they be illusion or not. You know, they still have to be handled. If my child is hungry, I better go to the grocery store. You know, if my husband doesn't have clean laundry, I better do the laundry. Is that right, honey? Yes, I know. I was really close to saying that. Thank you for adding that. And I was trying to be nice, and you said it. He said underwear if nobody heard him. So there's all these things that have to be done. So the point of it is, though, from that workbook lesson, it says that we will return to paths of learning once we've experienced that presence of God. It says we may return to paths of learning, but we return with a touch of heaven. A touch of heaven in our hearts, on our minds, in everything that we do. And the beauty of that is that no matter what we do now, we can bring that light with us. We're never the same after we've entered into that presence. We have that sense of something more about us, something greater about us. That truth is always with us. Sort of like the story of the prodigal son. I always thought that's an interesting story where, you know, the son wanders away, goes off on his journey, and the father is always there waiting. And finally, when the son makes his journey through everything in the world, he finally says, I'm going to come home. So he always knew at some point that he could come home and that all would be forgiven. And even the father doesn't say, there's nothing to forgive. I'm just so glad you're here. And that's the awareness of God to us. He's just glad we're here. And we're like the prodigal sons. We've kind of wandered away. But the truth is, when we enter into his presence, we realize we can come home again. We can come home again. Any moment that we choose, in the midst of our laundry, in the midst of our dishwashing, in the midst of our jobs that maybe we're not so crazy about, you know, we can come home. We can enter into that presence. So we have that potential. And that's what that first week was about. It was about reminding us of that potential that is always there for us, that light that is never lost within this world. And, you know, the media is kind of responding to this. If you've seen any of these new movies, I mean, certainly 12 Years a Slave. Did anybody see that? I didn't actually see it yet. I actually heard about the author who wrote the book or wrote the screenplay based on the slave, the actual slave's journals. And a very interesting story. Of course, if you've seen the movie, you know that. But all the time that he was in the South, because he was a free black man in the North, and he was lured back into the South, and then he had no ability to leave the South once he got there because as a black man he had no rights. But what did he know all the time? What kept him going was that he knew he was a free man and that he could get home. That's what kept him going. He was going to get home. He was going to get home. And if you think about it, you may wonder what keeps you going in this illusion of the world with all the pain and suffering. You know what keeps you going is the reality of who you are, the truth about you, that keeps us going no matter what we are faced with. And that's what this is talking about. Into his presence would I enter now. The awareness of what really keeps us going in the midst of everything that we are going through, that we will awaken to the truth. And that's a powerful awareness. So that's what the first week was about. The second week was As we awaken to this, we realize the truth about ourselves. Light and joy and peace abide in us. Our sinlessness is guaranteed by God. We bring that awareness into this moment now. We bring that awareness into our laundry, into our daily jobs, into our profession as students, or wherever we may find ourselves. We bring that awareness into it because that's the truth about us. And that's the truth about everyone who walks this world with us, that light and joy and peace abide in each and every one of us. And so as we enter into that presence, as we come out and live in this world, we ignite that truth through light and joy and peace. And last week, in the third week of Lent, or our lessons in light, God is the love in which I forgive. So that when we feel that we don't recognize that light, when that light seems to be dimmed by the judgments and the fears and the grievances of this world, that we need help to move past that. We need to experience the power of forgiveness in our lives. And even though God has never condemned us for anything that we have done in our world, we have judgments about ourselves, and we need help to forgive ourselves. And God's strength becomes the ability for us to forgive ourselves. Of ourselves, it's practically impossible for us to move past our limitations and our judgments, and perhaps even the limitations and judgments of others. But God is so powerful in his love for us that he can help move us past those blocks and heal us now. So God is the love in which I forgive became our third week.